Hello and welcome to the World Wanderers podcast, your source for travel stories, travel destinations, and travel philosophy.
I'm Amanda.
I'm Ryan.
And we're your hosts. Hello and welcome to another episode of the World Wanderers podcast. Today on the podcast, we are super excited to be talking about another one of our favorite cities for another episode of the Our Favorite Cities series. And today we're going to be talking about Tokyo, Japan.
Tokyo is the capital city of Japan and one of the world's largest cities, with 13 million people living in the city proper and an estimated population of the greater Tokyo area with over 40 million people. That is more people than live in Canada. It is absolutely crazy to think about. Tokyo is on the largest island in Japan, Honshu Island, and was founded and originally called Edo all the way back in the 12th century. Since then, a lot has happened that I'm not going to go into here, but it has an incredibly rich history that you can see and experience if you are to visit. Since 1869, it has served as the Japanese capital, and it is the home to the Emperor of Japan and the Japanese government. We visited Tokyo for the first time in 2017 and fell in love right away.
Yeah, and Japan was a country that had been on our travel bucket list for a number of years. We love Japanese food, we love Japanese culture, and we were so excited to experience all of that firsthand, because there's nothing like experiencing a culture that you've got tidbits about in your home country or in other countries in person. Like, seeing it all firsthand is so amazing. And so we had the opportunity to spend 3 weeks in Japan. Half of it probably about was spent in Tokyo. And arriving in Tokyo is just a wild experience. You fly over the city. It's so big. It's so beautifully lit. You get to land at an airport, and then you travel into the city. And everywhere you look, there's just buildings and people and cars. Yet it's not overwhelming and it's not stressful. And this was one of the things that made it one of our favorite cities. There is everything you can imagine there. So many different areas of the city that are super unique compared to other places in the world. Yet it doesn't feel stifling, overwhelming, unsafe. It's very clean, it's very peaceful, and it's just a really awesome city. But since we don't have a ton of experience in Tokyo, we really felt like we couldn't do it complete justice in terms of what we're looking for with these particular Our Favorite City episodes. So we brought our friend Becky Gillespie from Tokyo Becky back on the podcast to share all about her experiences in Tokyo. Becky was a resident of Japan and lived in Tokyo for about 10 years. And so she has a ton of knowledge to share with you guys today. So without further ado, here is Becky. Becky, welcome back to the podcast. We're super excited to have you here with us.
Thank you. I'm so excited to see you guys in person as well here in Mexico City.
Yeah, it's really fun to actually be doing this in person. And we were talking about this before because you have a podcast as well, but we don't do many interviews in person. So it's actually like I could reach across the table and touch you, which is super cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And so thank you for taking the time to talk to us about Japan, Tokyo specifically, since you know so much more than we do. And our first question for you is, can you give us a little pitch on why somebody should go to Tokyo, why they should have that in their travels?
Absolutely. So Tokyo, in my opinion, is the best city in the world. And I've personally been to almost 70 countries now. But if you look at lists online about best cities in the world, Tokyo is usually in the top spot or in the top 3. So, all those opinions on the internet can't be wrong, right? But Tokyo is it's the safest place in the world. It has the most people in one city as well. So that can be a bit overwhelming, but I don't know. The food is also the best that you'll ever taste across the board, except for Mexican food, actually, I can say. And it's just, there's all kinds of things going on all the time. You can walk across the city. You can grab a train so easily. You don't need a car. You can just really explore this place, and just people watch is entertaining enough in this city. And I think there's so much to offer.
Yeah, I think that was something that was really striking for us when we went. you just kind of, especially we were coming from Southeast Asia, we were kind of imagining in our head, like, this is going to be the biggest city we've ever been to. It's going to be so crazy, so chaotic, but it really doesn't feel like that at all, other than like a few places where you go to the, like that major intersection crosswalk thing. But other than that, you feel very comfortable and not overwhelmed by the amount of people at all.
It's also incredibly quiet. If you're looking for a huge city that's not going to feel overwhelming noise-wise or traffic, honking horns and everything wise, it's amazing how quiet the city is.
Yeah, we actually have some, and I can't remember if it made it into one of our Tokyo episodes, but I took some audio on our portable recorder when we were there, walking down, it's Omotesando?
Yes.
Oh,
good pronunciation.
Okay, I was like, I don't know if I got this right or not, but it's just packed. Like I made an Instagram story too, or like a video, and it's just packed with people. You just see like all these like black hair, like just everywhere. It's packed and it's so quiet. And I was like, this is amazing. Like this culture is so unique to anywhere else that we've ever been in the world. Like you don't find that in Canada, US. You certainly don't find that in Mexico. It's just so cool.
And like a lot of, I don't know about, every country, but Tokyo is the epicenter of everything in Japan. There, of course, are other amazing cities, but it's the center of culture. It's the center of commerce. And you can find anything you're looking for there. There is something for everyone.
All right, so we're going to jump into our lightning round. This is where we quickly go through and we're going to kind of throw some quick questions at you for recommendations of things and places and foods in Tokyo to check out. So the very first one is going to be kind of a three-parter. It's around restaurants, but one restaurant to go to or I guess to start with, one cafe to go to if you're in Tokyo.
Okay, so you said one, but I have two. So the first one I thought of was coffee mameya. Mame means bean in Japanese, and ya means shop, so coffee bean shop. Mameya is in Omotesando, Harajuku area, and it's very fashionable. So if you go in, the design, you're going to really feel a Japanese design if you go in there. Actually, you can't sit in there and drink coffee. You have to just pick it up and take it away. But they have different blends from other parts of Japan as well as other parts of Asia, and the people working there really know their coffee, and they can recommend beans to buy, but also you can get drinks. So I think it really will show you that feeling of Japanese design matched with what they do best, which is perfecting everything. The other place I'm recommending is in the neighborhood called Shimokitazawa, which is 5 minutes by train from Shibuya, what everybody has seen on TV, that crossing with all the people and the TV screens. In Shimokitazawa, there's a place called Trois Chambres, and that is French for 3 rooms. So hopefully the spelling you can get. Maybe you'll put a link to it.
Yeah, we'll have links to all this stuff in the show notes at theworldwanderers.com.
Yeah, so Trois Chambres, I'm putting this one on my list because it's what is called a kisaten in Japan, which is the traditional Japanese cafe. So that's a unique thing to Japan, the way that they imagine traditional old-style cafes. And you really feel this old feeling when you go into this place. It's got mostly just one guy making you perfect coffee, bringing you things to your table, and you'll really feel the quiet. And it feels like an attic when you go in there. And it's just, you'll see the other side of a Japanese cafe, which is the old traditional side.
Yeah, those both sound awesome. So next one is a lunch spot.
Yeah, so here I put Midori. Midori, by the way, means green. Midori Sushi, which is I think there's a few locations, but the one I'm recommending is in a place called Umegaoka, again on the west side of Japan. But actually, what I'm going to say generally is if you want to have fancy sushi when you're in Japan, which please do, everyone, it's very well worth it, go for lunch because that's when you'll get a much better deal. So I think with Midori Sushi, you can go in and it's about $20 or $25, but you will get a really, really nice spread of sushi. And so I would look online, Google it, look for fancy sushi places, and then make a reservation if you have to for lunch. Sometimes even a month in advance for the fancy places, guys. Actually,
wow.
Midori Sushi is where I took you guys in Tokyo.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that place was awesome.
Yeah. All right, and then so for one dinner spot.
Okay. you might sense a trend here. I love the neighborhood of Shimokitazawa, which is also where Twasham is. But there's a place there called Shiru Bay, and it's amazing. It's the staff are so friendly. It's a Japanese fusion restaurant, but you have so many interesting dishes there. And I think it's open from 5:30 p.m. And if you have more than 4 people going, you should call ahead and try to get a table. But it's a really lively, and you'll get a real sense of Japanese spirit there.
Awesome. That sounds amazing as well. And so next thing on the lightning round is one rainy day activity.
Okay, so this is actually a new place. I think it's been open about 2 years. It's called Team Lab Borderless. If you Google that, it's like a visual museum. So when you go in, and by the way, please get your tickets in advance. I would look, if you're planning a trip to Tokyo, yeah, you can buy the tickets online in advance because it is very popular. But you go in and there's all these laser lights all over the walls making like shapes, and you can interact with the visual displays on the wall. It's unique. I think it's actually in a few cities around the world now, but it's a fantastic place to lose yourself during the rainy day.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm all about stuff like that. Interactive museums are my thing.
There's even a cafe, Amanda. You're going to love this.
Nice.
There's a cafe in there. And again, like I think there might be a line, so go early. But you can go in and you're in the dark with this cup of tea. And they've got laser lights going on the top of it like it's magically glowing and all these things.
It's like real life Harry Potter.
It's a real life Harry Potter moment.
Yeah. It's all
incredible.
my favorite things. Man, I love Japan.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. So we talked about what to do if it's raining outside. If it is sunny, you've got a beautiful day. What's like one great outdoor thing to do in Tokyo?
Well,
or around Tokyo?
There's so much. I would say, one great thing too about Tokyo is it's incredibly safe, as I've already mentioned. So you can just walk and walk and walk, and it's a fairly flat city there. And so you can just enjoy all the neighborhoods blending into each other because there are really distinctive neighborhoods. So I would say go for a long walk. If you're there in the spring, you might even be walking amongst all these cherry blossom trees. So, yeah.
Awesome. What is one uniquely Japanese thing to try? Ryan put in brackets, weird experience.
Well, yeah, the first thing I wrote was sumo. But sumo, you should probably know, is not something you can just show up any time of the year and see. The matches are mostly in May and September, and sometimes I think January as well. But those tickets sell out incredibly fast. So definitely, again, go online and reserve the tickets. With all the people in Tokyo, you might be sensing this trend here. It's important to plan ahead when you go to Tokyo to have all the experiences that you want. But the other thing, which also Ryan and Amanda and I did together that I'm recommending, is going to a maid cafe in the Akihabara Electric Town region of Tokyo, that's very easy to just walk into any of them. There are several there, and you have a Japanese Victorian maid looking girl like serving you in the most polite Japanese ever, and she's serving you with the best tea service she can give you.
Yeah, I really liked that experience. It was definitely, I think, quote unquote, weird experience for sure. Something that you would not find in Canada, or at least not in the context of the way that we experienced it. But yeah, I remember she made us sing before we could have our drinks. So I think we all sang together, and I think my matcha latte came with a cat on it. Pretty sure. So yeah, definitely love that recommendation for sure.
Yeah. And so what would be the best time of the year to visit Tokyo?
I actually, when you guys asked me this question, fall came to my mind first because everybody thinks spring cherry blossoms, and it really is the best time, but it's also the most crowded and the most expensive. So if you're going to do spring, which I hope everybody does once in their life, plan way ahead. Like I'm talking 6 months if you want to get the best hotel for you at the best price. But fall is also beautiful in Japan with the changing colors of the leaves. And again, the temperatures are pretty moderate at those times of the year.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. We'll have to go back in fall. I think having been there in spring, I'm definitely it was busy. I guess I don't have another experience to compare it to, but it was busy. But I don't know. I was so obsessed with those cherry blossoms. I feel like it was 100% worth it.
Yeah, in Tokyo, it's easier to do spring than in Kyoto. So I'm thinking a lot of people, if they come the first time, they also want to go to Kyoto. And if you go to Kyoto in the spring, wow, it's the hotels get booked out pretty far in advance.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. What's one of the best things about living in Tokyo?
I just think for me, being a woman, I always think of safety, number one. Also, I'm from the U.S., and you hear a lot about gun control and violence in the U.S., but in Japan, there are no guns, and it's just you can walk at 3 a.m. all across the city and never feel worried and never feel, like you have to question what's going to happen. So I love the safety, but also, as I've already mentioned, the food is unbelievable. And it's not as expensive as people think. You can do the lowest end and have it be amazing and the highest end, and it's all available to you in Tokyo. So I think that's great too.
Yeah. Safety is super important to us as well. And I think that it is nice, especially because we went to Japan after having been in Asia for like 7 months, I think. So it's so nice after you've been in like Thailand and Myanmar and places where you can just go to Japan and you just know, like, people are so friendly, people are so helpful, it's clean, it's safe, you can drink the water. Definitely just like a very comfortable place to be. But yeah, food is amazing there for sure.
The cleanliness, like you said, that's a good thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've talked about a little bit before about how I feel like most people think like getting out of your comfort zone, traveling somewhere new, often we kind of think of it as well as coming with a bit of like sketchiness being attached to it. Japan's like that great place that's like so foreign, so alien, but also you can be kind of secure, but like uncomfortable. You can go wander around. Everything's so weird. You don't know what's going on, but you don't have to worry so much.
Lost in translation is a real thing. Like you will, and there's more and more, you don't feel that everywhere you go these days. I also have to say one other thing, being an American, there is no tipping in Japan at all for anything. And so there's no question about how much more should I give them. I love that too.
Yeah, no, I love that as well. Okay, so other side of things, what's the worst thing about living there?
So the crowds. I mean, sometimes they get to you. If you are in those busy, popular parts of Tokyo, there are moments when you're just like, I really wish I could just have a quiet moment here. And in sometimes the day you can't. And so that sometimes gets overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we were only in Japan for 3 weeks, so I feel like didn't experience it so much in Japan. But having lived in Mexico City, I feel like that was one of the things that, like, when we went back to Canada, I was like, ooh, space, personal space, silence, no people. That's a really nice gift to have.
For sure. And so for the next one, what's the best way to experience Tokyo? And just for some context, we often think about this as, and it's going to depend based off how far away you're traveling to the city, but is it a place where you want to go and spend an entire week and just visit there? Is it something you want to build into a bigger trip? Is it something that you really can't appreciate unless you find a way to stay there for a longer stretch of time?
You can do it two ways. Either stay in Tokyo longer and give yourself days where you're really busy and seeing all these things, but then give yourself a day to just relax and do very little, because you probably will be jet lagged coming from wherever you're coming from. And it's a lot of walking. You're probably not used to that much walking in Tokyo, although they have great trains as well. So I think either stay longer and just break up what you're doing over several days, or go for that whirlwind. Go for 2 or 3 days where you get way lost in translation and you're like, what's even happening? But it's all happening at the same time. I also recommend Shinjuku as and that's where a lot of the trains come in from the airport. It's a hub and epicenter of Tokyo. And you can see almost everything there. If you just walk around Shinjuku, you've seen a lot of sides of Tokyo, which you can do in a day,
Yeah, I feel like it's always kind of hardest when you're going somewhere that's kind of far away and you get that temptation of like, okay, I've got 2 weeks in Japan. I need to see everything. I need to go to Sapporo and Hiroshima and do everything and build it all into this super mega trip, but then you don't really get too deep into anything. So I feel like it's always hard to balance that out.
Tokyo is great for being that place in Japan where you feel like you can just sit and not see that much. After a few days, you feel, okay, I can take a day off and easily walk to all these places, whereas the other cities in Japan are a bit more spread out. So to get places, it's more of a hike. So Tokyo, it's all convenient if you do just want to chill. The other thing I think I should mention, sorry, I didn't mention this for worst thing. In Tokyo, the trains do stop running at the latest by 1 a.m. So that can be frustrating if you do want to go out a bit later, because taxis are very expensive in Japan, and especially in Tokyo. So that's one thing that always bothered me. I wish there were night buses that could get you back closer to where you live. But you don't want to if you get stuck in the center of Tokyo after 1 a.m., you're either paying a big bill to go home or you're clubbing till 5.
Yeah, that's actually, we arrived pretty late in Tokyo, and I think we took a cab because we had all of our stuff, and I was like, man, I'd heard these were expensive. I think we took the train like from the airport to a station, and then we had to just take a cab from there to our Airbnb, and it was pretty expensive. And then, yeah, I think it was you that was telling us how like people sometimes will use like internet cafes. They'll just like pay for a booth if they like miss the train, and they'll just like stay in the internet cafe until they can like ride the 5 a.m. train. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, the internet booth can run you about $15 a night. Also another hack if you're really needing a place to stay. It's not comfortable though, but it's there, and they do have a shower. But yeah, a 15-minute ride can cost you $30, $40 easily.
Yeah, it's crazy. Japan, got to get on that Uber.
And so if you're basing yourself in Tokyo, you've only got one place outside of Tokyo to go to. What should be that place?
I have to say Kyoto if you're going one other place. If it's that your very first trip to Japan, you don't know when you're going to have that second trip. Kyoto is definitely worth it. It's amazing. There's 1,000 temples there. You can also get templed out, which people do, but it lives up to what you think it's going to be. Just go to all the places early. All the temples, we're talking 6 a.m., 7 a.m.
Yeah, I think having gone there in Sakura season, it was pretty busy while we were there. But yeah, beautiful. Just a totally different vibe from Tokyo. I think you get that more of like what Japan was like 50 years ago or 100 years ago type feel, which is really cool.
Oh, and one other thing I have to say, and this is a special part of the year. If you're there between May and September, try to go and see a Japanese baseball game. That's another way to really feel what Japan is like. They love baseball so much. You can see such a cross-section of Japanese, and they will start talking to you there. They're very laid back in the stadium.
Yeah, we went in Hiroshima, and that was probably one of our coolest experiences while we were in Japan, for sure. Like, because we've been to baseball games, like Major League Baseball games in the U.S., and it's like same, but different. It's like they all know the chants. It's very organized. You can get like ramen and udon and sushi instead of hot dogs. And yeah, that was definitely a really cool experience for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so now the people have heard all these recommendations. They want to start planning the trip. If you are going to Tokyo, what would be the best neighborhoods to stay in, and then the best ways to find a place to stay?
So I would say Airbnb, everybody should know, in Tokyo has been greatly restricted. Last June 2018, there was a law passed that really restricted things for Airbnb. So have a look, but most of the things you're going to find for Tokyo are actually hostels or guest houses on Airbnb due to the law change. So I would go to booking.com and like try to look for some hotels. I'll also consider private rooms and hostels is another cheap option, but it's not so easy for things like Airbnb anymore. And also, if you've got like friends of friends networks on Facebook, you might want to ask like, hey, thinking of going to Tokyo, does anyone know anyone there that I might be able to get in contact with? And if that friend that you know that's living in Japan doesn't have a place, maybe another person does, it can save a lot of money and they can introduce you to places there. In terms of neighborhoods, I love the neighborhood of Shimokitazawa. There's not a lot of accommodation there, but it's close to Shibuya and Shinjuku. So I always tell people, stay in Shinjuku if you can, because it's got everything there and really quick links to other parts of the city.
Awesome. And I guess trying to kind of locate yourself close to a train station is probably a smart move since cabs are so expensive.
Definitely check for that, because once you get onto the train, everything's going to be much easier.
Yeah.
And if you're a nomad looking to base yourself there for kind of like a medium term, like maybe a couple months, are there any good resources that people could look at to find a bit of a longer term place, or is it kind of tough as well?
It can be it can be easy. There's a company called Sakura House. Sakura means cherry blossom, by the way. So Sakura, Sakura House, and they can set you up with short-term contracts in guest houses. So you'll get your own bedroom, but typically you're going to share the bathroom. That's one way to do it. Airbnb, there might be some options if you're doing it longer term, but I wouldn't count on it. I think Sakura House, or just if you Google guest house Japan, you might find some places. But I've used Sakura House myself, and they have several properties across the city, and I stayed for 2 months and I enjoyed it. So
Awesome. And so we talked about kind of the best way to get around the city is subway / walking. What's the best way to get around kind of the country? So if you're going using Tokyo kind of as a base and then you want to visit some other places, what do you recommend?
So this is a huge one. Definitely look for a Japan Rail Pass and buy it before you go to Japan, because you'll kind of validate your ticket once you get to Japan, but it's so much easier. And I think sometimes they won't even let you get this Rail Pass once you enter the country. So the Japan Rail Pass will give you unlimited train travel, including the bullet trains for 7 days, 14 days. They've got different packages, but it saves you so much money. For example, a 7-day pass is about, I think, $350, $375, but one return ticket from Tokyo to Kyoto on a bullet train is about the same price, to give you an idea of how much you can save. So to get from Kyoto to Hiroshima or Osaka, like, you're saving so much money because it's all included.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that we found that when we went, I think we got our Japan Rail Pass in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia from a travel agency.
That was in it's like a Japanese department store, and they had like it was like you go by the bathrooms and like down this hallway, and there was like a travel agency that sold only Japan stuff.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that's where you guys got your Japan Rail Pass.
Yeah, it was super, super random, because I'd read like once you're there, they won't sell them to you if you're foreign or something like that. But we had kind of looked, because they are expensive. We'd kind of looked like, oh, maybe we should do buses or something like that. But I feel like for us, because we were there for 3 weeks and it was our first time in Japan, we're like, we have to have this bullet train experience. Like, it feels so quintessential Japan. Do you recommend buses, or would you just say like get the rail pass?
I would say if you're going to be there 7 days or more and you really want to see lots of Japan, I would get the rail pass. Just because there's a lot of the buses are like overnight buses. So if you don't sleep well on them, that could be another thing. The bullet trains, by the way, don't run overnight. So it's just a matter of how much time you have. But the buses are comfortable. Shinjuku is also a really big bus hub. So yeah, I've taken overnight buses and been fine. But I think I would say get the Japan Rail Pass.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. And so we talked about Kyoto. What other places, if people are kind of using Tokyo as a hub for a short trip, should definitely be on people's list? And maybe anything that's not, on the typical route that they should check out.
Okay, are you saying like day trips from Tokyo?
Or just, if you were going to Japan for 2 weeks, like what would be good cities to visit?
Yeah, so besides Osaka and Nara as well, which is about a half-hour train ride from Kyoto, I would say, so a lot of things I like to go to are in the Kyoto-Osaka area, which is west of Tokyo, if I start to leave Tokyo and see other things. There's also an area, I don't know if I mentioned this, that for a hiking place, but there's a place called Okutama, which is slightly northwest of Tokyo, and it has great hiking. There's a few places to stay. There's a mountain called Mitake, which is a great day hike. Another place is called Takao, which is the most popular day hike from Tokyo. And so you won't be alone there, but I think Okutama is a great region, actually. There's a sake brewery there. You can go and have some sake. And also, though, there's a place called Koya, so Mount Koya, which is actually south of Osaka. That's a great place to go. It's got like 50 Buddhist temples all on a mountain together, and you can stay in one of them. Again, early planning, guys. Plan ahead for this. Don't just show up at the Buddhist temple. But I went there one fall, and they have like you're served in your room by the monks, and it's all vegetarian, and it was like we did meditation for an hour. That's a really cool experience, and it's getting more popular to go there.
Awesome. Yeah, those sound like all great recommendations.
Also, Fukuoka, the city of Fukuoka, is getting more and more popular. It's even further west. It's almost the edge of Japan and further west. It just depends. There's so much to do if you want to go hiking. There's a place called, if you go to Kagoshima, the city of Kagoshima, you take a ferry over to an island, the name of which is escaping me, but it's a really great experience there.
Cool. Yeah, lots to do.
Yakushima. That's the island, Yakushima.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for all those recommendations. I feel like I need to start like looking at flights or something. As we were talking about it, I was like, I need to go back to Japan.
Yeah, same.
Change our plan.
We haven't even talked about skiing. I mean, wow, if you go in winter, it's amazing. I can't even begin to talk about all the different places you can go skiing in Japan.
Yeah, so I guess last question, anything we missed, like anything people going to Tokyo should know that we didn't cover in this? And obviously we'll have a lot more recommendations for specific restaurants and all that stuff in our show notes, but anything else you think?
If you forget anything when you're in Tokyo, there are fantastic dollar stores, or 100 yen shops, as they call them. So they really have great quality, pretty great quality stuff for paying $1. And that's a good stop to. And the convenience stores. Oh my goodness. Oh, yeah. The Japanese convenience stores are really, really convenient. You can do everything there, from make copies, fax things, buy tickets to places, mail things. And they have all this fun little great food in there.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's funny because we're in Mexico right now, and you walk into the Oxxos, and it's just the chips and the pops and the beers and stuff are fine. That's pretty standard. But then you look at the food and you're just like, man, who eats this? It is so gross looking. No offense to anyone who likes that. And then you walk into a convenience store in Tokyo, and it's everything is aesthetically pleasing. It's the first time I've ever walked into a convenience store anywhere in the world, and I've been oh, there's fresh food here that actually looks like something I want to eat. And I think you introduced us to the onigiri.
The rice, yes, the rice triangles.
I was we call them sushi triangles. So I'm what's the actual name? And I was oh, I don't eat sushi from convenience stores. And you're just try it. And we were hooked after that. It's amazing. It's so affordable. It's delicious. It's fresh.
They're $1 for a little each one.
Yeah. I feel for us, especially because when we were there, we were traveling on a budget. We should have been on that right from day one, eating one meal a day just from the Lawson's or the 7-Eleven, because it's so good.
You honestly could live on convenience store food in Japan and still be pretty happy if you really wanted to save money. But please go to fancy sushi once. I'm telling you, it's worth it.
Yeah, I would agree with that also.
All right. Thanks so much, Becky. Where can people go to find more about you and the things you're working on?
So I'm actually a podcast host myself, and I'm working on a podcast called The School of Travels. And I haven't done a Japan-centric episode there yet, but I'm going to be doing one soon. But I have about 25 episodes now with different people, just what they learn while they travel. So theschooloftravels.com, or listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Awesome. Thanks, Becky.
Thank you, guys.
To find more information, relevant links, and photos talked about in this week's episode, check out theworldwanderers.com.
If you have a question, comment, or feedback, send us an email at info@theworldwanderers.com. Join our community on Facebook at The World Wanderers, or on Twitter at WorldWanderers1. As always, thanks so much for listening.
Have a great day.
Bye.